All right, for history, we're going to start discussing some of the stuff that's going on. I know for the past 2 weeks we didn't do that, but I feel like it's important for us to start grabbing onto the concept of now we're a nation in our history book. We've beat the British, we're independent, and here we are now gonna start a nation. 13 colonies started the nation, but we're gonna start to grow pretty fast. So go ahead, make sure you read the section first, and then we're gonna go over the words that you need for your notes. Articles of Confederation. This was the first plan the government agreed upon. Now, here was a problem with Articles of Confederation. They did not write in that they could tax anybody. So there was no power to tax the people, which means there was no power for the government to actually bring in money or take any money from the people in order to run the government. Let's talk a little bit about the Constitutional Convention. This was actually the convention where they're going to pick the president, they're going to write the Constitution, and they're going to make some big decisions for our country. The first thing that happens at the Constitutional Convention was it was held in Philadelphia. They picked George Washington to be the president at this convention. Now there was a man named James Madison, who eventually does become one of our presidents, who they consider to be the person that did the most work at the convention. Also at the Constitutional Convention, the Constitution was written, and this is a plan for the new government, which our government actually follows today. Now, when they were making the plan for our government, they had to figure out how to break up who was in charge. So the first person that they figured out was in charge was obviously the president. Now the president would be the one in power to see that all laws are obeyed. That's his job. They also need other people to help with the government and how this country is ran. So the next person or group of people is called Congress. This would be the power of the country that makes the most important laws. Okay, so Congress itself makes our laws, our most important, the laws that go over the whole entire country. In that Congress, there's actually two groups. The groups are called the Senate and the House of Representatives. Now, each of these groups is called a house. Okay, so the House of Representatives, and then there's a house called the Senate. Now, the Senate is that no matter how big or small your state is, they will get 2 senators. So California is really big, we have 2 senators. Rhode Island's really tiny, but they still get 2 senators. So no matter what state you are from, you have 2 senators that represent your state. Now the House of Representatives, which is another part of the same Congress, just a different house, each state gets a different number based on how big your state is in size of population, meaning how many people are there. So for instance, California has a really big population, so we have a lot more senators than Rhode Island, which has a really tiny population. So I'll give you an example. I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say that because California is so big, we might get something like 54 House of Representatives. However, Rhode Island's really small, so they might only get 10 or 11 representatives because of the size of, or the amount of people that are there. Not the size, like how big California is, but the amount of people that live in each state. Now, the last part of the government that we're going to talk about is called the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and their job is to make sure that people are following the Constitution. And if they're not following the Constitution, they're going to go to court over it in the Supreme Court. And this isn't just like, oh, I got in a car accident and I want to sue this guy. We're talking about laws that are breaking the actual Constitution. Those kinds of rule-breaking situations will go before what's called the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land.